BC Children's Hospital Dream Lottery. Win this fabulous South Surrey home or $2.3 million tax-free cash. Tickets, bcchildren.com. Here he is, the triumphant return. He has gone gallivanting Eastern Europe. But Jeff Paterson, our Canucks reporter and one half of the rink-wide duo with Andrew Wadden, is back on Pacific time. Welcome back, Jeff.
Good. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for welcoming me back. It's good to be back. It was good to be away, but we had a great time and did a lot, saw a lot. But yeah, it's a month today. The Canucks hit the ice in Whistler for training camp. So hockey season is truly just around the corner. Seeing videos of guys skating and those types of things. Obviously, young stars before that. But we are 1 month out from today. A very brief 2-day training camp in Whistler, but the 1 month warning for camp in Whistler.
In your travels, did you come across hockey in any way, shape, or form? You weren't in hockey country per se, if I could be wrong there, but based on the photos I'd seen. But did you see hockey at all in your part of the world?
I did not. We were in Switzerland for a little while, and the Swiss did have a team at the World Juniors. We were in Austria. I think, did Austria have a team at the World Juniors?
They sure
did.
did.
They did. But it was over by the time we ended up in Vienna. So, no, there was no hockey. I mean, I had my phone. I was trying to, I was trying to go off the grid, but at the same time, I'm me, and that is impossible to do. So I was checking to see what was going on, and was in Vienna when I saw that the Flames and Nazem Kadri had done their deal. So, I was consuming a little bit of hockey along the way, but in terms of actually touching the sport over there, no, not at all.
Late August, J-Pat, it's a tradition. Looking, listening, smelling for the signs of hockey.
Yes,
you can tell that Jeff starts to get excited in late August for the good old hockey game. So why don't we just start with this one? Are you surprised the Canucks have done pretty much nothing since you left a few weeks ago?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's more of what we had seen earlier in the offseason as well, and this comes with cap issues. So they don't have the flexibility to do some of the things that they probably would like to do. I would love to have seen that they've been able to move off some money, but that's not happening around the National Hockey League. Or if it is, you're paying a significant price, the way the Flames did with Sean Monahan. So I am not surprised, but on a day like today, when I see Carolina digging in and scooping up Paul Stastny for $1.5 million, I mean, that's where I wish the Canucks had some cap flexibility and maneuverability to explore those kinds of deals. I mean, I'd looked at Stastny as a third-line center. The guy's a consistent 40-point producer. He had 21 goals in Winnipeg last season. He played for Mike Yeo in St. Louis way back when. He's almost 54% on his career in the face-off circle. And we know that the Canucks don't really have a 3C, and they certainly don't have a center for their second power play unit. And I think a guy like Paul Stastny, even at 36 on a 1-year deal, like he would have checked a few boxes there. But alas, the Canucks don't have that kind of ability right now to jump into the market. So I know late last week they were linked to more players, and that's fine. I mean, they can be linked to every player that's available, but they just don't have the capacity to go out and sign without moving some money. So full circle to answer your question, no, not surprised, but at some point, something is going to happen here. Push will ultimately come to shove in the month here ahead before training camp that we mentioned.
100% on Stastny, Jeff. That's a terrific value signing from Carolina. He's also a distributor, on top of being everything that you outlined. He played very good competition against very good competition last year. They may have some more flexibility than we think. We'll see about Tucker Poolman, but you mentioned that they've been linked to guys, Evan Rodriguez, Calvin DeHaan. Your thoughts on whether they could help the Canucks if, in fact, the reports are right and they get one of these two bargain bin free agents?
Yeah, honestly, I haven't gone too far down the road on either guy just because I don't see how it happens without the first shoe falling. But Rodriguez is a Penguin. The Canucks have been linked to every guy that has any ties to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I suppose on that level, it makes some sense. He had a nice season last year. You do wonder if it was an outlier. Time will tell there. But, he's one of these guys that is kind of fallen victim to the middle class situation. Like, he did his part, he put up numbers, and was hoping to get paid, and it hasn't happened yet for him. So Do I think he can play in the National Hockey League? Sure, I do. I don't see it happening with the Vancouver Canucks. But again, recognizing the strong Pittsburgh connections, I wouldn't rule it out entirely. Much as I kind of thought the Canucks were going to kick some tires on Zach Aston Reese at some point here in the offseason, and maybe they did. But he remains out on the market as well, I believe. So. Calvin DeHaan, if he played the right side, I think I'd have a little bit more interest in him, but he's a lefty, and so not sure where he would fit on the depth chart. But again, we've seen it over the years. You can never have too much depth at that position, especially here on the West Coast. But so I'm not surprised maybe that they are linked, that they've made some inquiries, the phone calls have been made there. I would probably think there was a little more to it if the Canucks were in a better position to actually go out there and make some signings.
May have to just settle for the free agents that they have, and Ilya Mikheyev, and of course Andrei Kuzmenko, who is in town and is showing some dedication to get in town nice and early. He seems very excited. I like the fact that he's in early because it's summer. You get to see Vancouver at its best, and maybe the hook gets sunk into a guy, and he falls in love with the city a little bit more, and he seems like a fun, high-energy guy with the little videos that they've sent out from Canucks.com. And, we're not going to draw any conclusions based on the skills drills that he's doing out there at 8 rinks. But, again, I just think it's good that he is there. He clearly got the visas done and is in town and ready to play here.
Yeah, I sort of echo everything you said there. Not leaving anything to the last minute or to chance, and I think that's a good thing. Like, this guy wants to be here. We knew that he arrived, and now to see him and hamming for the camera and the Canucks social team out at 8 rinks, and that smile, come on. That's a $1 million smile that I guess if all goes well, it could be a $5 or $6 million smile this time next year for him. But he looks like he's having fun. That was a good sign to me. And you're right, he's not going to be judged by what he does in an August informal skate out at 8 rinks, but this is a guy that does have to adapt to a new city, new surroundings, smaller ice. And I just think if he's here in August and he's getting to work, and again, we're not going to be able to judge how he's adapted to the smaller ice, but I just think every opportunity he has to get to step onto North American ice before training camp, it'll just give him a better sense of his surroundings and allow him to find a comfort zone. So, yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great that he and Mikheyev, and obviously they share an agent, and so there's some familiarity there. And Mikheyev had said that, he was part of the pitch to get Kuzmenko to choose Vancouver at one point. The fact that these two guys are sort of falling into lockstep as well as countrymen and friends, and if one can help the other assimilate to life here in Vancouver, then I think the Canucks are going to be better off for it. So, part of me was a little surprised. Like, it is only the 3rd week of August. Like, we're still that month away from training camp. I'm not surprised the guys are skating, but I just wonder how many of these informal skates they'll take part in, how many more guys are going to arrive here in town before Labor Day, when will things ramp up. But the fact that they're out there in Canuck colors and skating, and it looked like Artur Silovs was one of the goaltenders, so a handful of guys are here already in town and starting to get their game faces on.
One other guy that fits into that little mafia, if you will, is Danila Klimovich. And we had zero expectation of him going into last season at the AHL level because, hey, young kid. And he's still young, obviously. It's only a year later here. But is it fair to have some expectation on him this season at the AHL level that he can be a contributor now that he's had a year to acclimatize and to mature and all that?
Yeah, I think so. He was their first pick, a second rounder, but their first pick in his draft year. The offense is there. The shot is there. I saw it for myself out at Prospects Camp in July out at UBC. The offensive tools are there, but we know that Klimovich couldn't get into the lineup, or they chose not to dress him late into the season and into those 2 playoff games that Abbotsford played. And Ryan Johnson talked about, there were some things there that they needed him to fall in line with what they were expecting from him and all the players. And so it kind of sounded like, it was some tough love, and you want to believe that this guy is going to learn from it. But I like the fact that he decided to stay here in the Vancouver area over the summer. He didn't go home, and so, I think that allows him to train and work with the Canucks and or the Abbotsford staff through the summer months. If he needs anything, people here they're around to help him. And I want to believe with one full season under his belt that he's going to be better. But I think that there were some lessons certainly that have to be taken from not being able to crack the lineup late in the year. But we know that the guy can shoot the puck. That's not an issue. The offensive tools are there. I hope that he's put in a position that, or at least earns a position to get opportunities, whether it's on the power play, whether it's in the top 6 or possibly the top 9, because they do have some quality AHL players in the system. But with all of the dedication that this new front office has put to player development, like he's one of the guys that sort of falls right into the crosshairs there of helping these players on their path to the National Hockey League. So the support system's in place, and just looking forward to seeing. I mean, he was a teenager adapting to everything brand new in his first year here. So I want to give him a little bit of leash, but I also want to see if he's going to progress. And it doesn't help, and I saw a lot of this as I was away, because I didn't see a second of the World Juniors on the other side of the world, but I did see in social spaces, again, this comparison to Logan Stankoven, who was there sitting, waiting for the Vancouver Canucks when they elected to opt for Klimovich, 41st in his draft class, and I think Stankoven went 47th, so a couple of picks later. And Stankoven just looks like a player. I mean, the guy's motor's always running. He sets up the gold medal winner. He was in their own backyard up in Kamloops and on a good Kamloops team last year, and one that's going to host the Memorial Cup next season. So there were a lot of reasons to like Logan Stankoven, the Dallas Stars, and obviously the Tom Ghilardi connection there. They didn't want to let him get out of their grasp, so they drafted him. But I think there's always going to be that comparison of, did the Canucks get it right, or did they miss on Klimovich when a guy like Stankoven was sitting there waiting to be selected?
Back to Kuzmenko for a second. Where do you think Boudreau and the coaching staff will start him?
Yeah, I've kicked that around. I've sort of gone through depth charts and things like that in my own head. It won't surprise me if they start him in sort of in a third line, top 9 capacity and allow him to breathe a little bit. Like, this is all new to him. And I think the last thing you want to do is raise the expectations through the roof and have him stumble out of the gates. I would probably elect to start him in a third line role, second power play unit, and see where you go. But at the same time, he's not a 19 or 20-year-old. I mean, this is a veteran now of professional hockey and a guy that showed he knows where the net is at the KHL. Certainly there is merit in that, but it's not the National Hockey League. So he does have to prove himself. But I would think that there's going to be an adjustment period just to the pace of the game, the size of the rink, the surroundings, buildings, all those types of things. And so you want him to succeed, but they can't wait too long on a one-year deal and a guy who, as I said, is a veteran player. So, in terms of who he's going to play with, I don't know, but I mean, I could see him on a line with Podkolzin maybe on the one side and Kuzmenko on the other wing. And if they're going to run the 3 centers of Horvat, Miller, and Pettersson, maybe Bo Horvat slots in as the third of those 3 centers. So could you have a line of Podkolzin, Horvat, and a guy like Kuzmenko? Yeah, possibly. But that's then suggesting that Mikheyev's going to start the season in the top 6, and there's no guarantee there because I think you probably could flip those 2 guys. So Bruce Boudreau's going to have some options. Coaching staff's going to have to figure that out, but I'm sure that the coaching staff has probably done some wall charting as well, trying to figure out who slots where and who slots with whom.
And, of course, we've had some fun here this week with where Elias Pettersson slots into this lineup. Boudreau last week on NHL XM radio saying JT Miller's our number 1 centerman. Do you think they're going to play Elias at center? Would you play Elias at center? Do you think they're loading up another big line with Elias playing on a wing alongside JT Miller, or at least for the face-off playing on the wing?
For the long-term good of the hockey club, Elias Pettersson has to be a center. At some point, they've got to get him back into the middle and leave him there. Now, if that means that you load up and Miller's here to start and Miller takes face-offs, I'm okay with that. Because I think the way that they are aligned right now with the personnel, I'd go lotto line. I would give Brock Besser every opportunity to succeed. That line has produced in the past. I would load up, and I think that they've done enough to fill around the fringes, whether it's Mikheyev, whether it's Kuzmenko, whether it was late season Podkolzin, Connor Garland. I think Connor Garland himself was disappointed with his first season as a Canuck. I think he'll be better. So, I think you've got some options there, but I would load up with and hope that Lotto Line could find its form from a couple of years ago. But for the long-term projections for both himself and the hockey club, I think Elias Pettersson has to find his way back into the middle and bring all the skills that he has. And again, I don't think that JT Miller is going to be here long term, but it looks now like he's going to start the season. So, I guess to answer your question, I see Elias Pettersson as a center. If he has to start on the wing and they want JT Miller to be there, but not fully having had that opportunity to flesh out, like, Miller was their leading scorer last year. He's their best player. I don't have any problem with that, but I still think of JT Miller as a winger, even though I've watched him play in the middle, share that position with Elias Pettersson. In my head, I've got Miller on the wing. I've got Pettersson in the middle. I would have Besser on the right side.
Which brings us to the Bodog poll question. In 2 to 3 years, who will be their best winger? Besser, Paterson, Podkolzin, or off the board? Go other.
Yeah, 2 to 3 years is a pretty short window for a guy like Podkolzin, I think, to jump to the top of the pack there. Now, there could be extenuating circumstances in as much as we don't know what Brock Besser's future is. We don't know about Pettersson and where he plays. And I just said, I see him as a center. And so maybe that clears a path for Podkolzin. But Lekaramaki, where's he going to be in a couple of years? Klomovich, does he take this quantum leap? When I saw the thing on Twitter, my first reaction was, come on, no way. Then as I started to think about it, again, just the uncertainty of Brock Besser, even though he's got the contract now, in 3 years' time, maybe Vasily Podkolzin has ascended to that point. 14 goals last year in 79 games as a rookie. He got better as the season went along. He certainly benefited from the top 6 opportunities when Horvat was out late and Pearson was injured, and even a guy like Höglander, somebody had to play into the top 6, and Podkolzin did that and played particularly well, to give you the hope that that's going to be his starting point for year number 2. But ask Nils Höglander if it is that simple. So, maybe there's some challenges ahead in his sophomore season. We'll find out. Being surrounded by his countrymen, I think, will help Vasily Podkolzin. The one thing I would like to see more is that shot. He only had 115 shots in 79 games, and we know, when you look at the goals, this guy scored from distance. He's got a big-time, big-league shot already. So, 14 goals as a rookie. I'd like to see him get closer to 20, but I don't know what the additions of guys like Mikheyev and Kuzmenko are going to mean in terms of ice time and opportunity for Vasily Podkolzin. So we know that Bruce Boudreau liked him. Bruce Boudreau liked just about everybody on his team because they all played well and performed for him last year. But, he had high praise for Podkolzin, the way that he plays. And I do think, in time, there does have to be some expectations. This guy's a top 10 pick, and Horvat and Pettersson and Hughes, they've already panned out as top 10 picks. The Canucks need Podkolzin to reach his potential as well. I think in time, I look at Vasily Podkolzin as sort of a 25-goal, 60-point guy who's going to kill penalties, who will play with an edge, who will be out there late in games protecting leads. I don't think of him as an 80-point scorer. That's probably raising the bar a little too high there, but at the same time, a top 10 pick. He was selected there for a reason. I don't think we saw a ton of his playmaking. That was one of the things that he came sort of with his advanced billing of, he's been playing in the KHL. I know he struggled to get ice time, but sort of an underrated playmaker. I don't think we saw a ton of that from Vasily Podkolzin last season, and just 12 assists would sort of bear that out. So, that's an area that I think and I hope that he can and will get better.
One thing that escalated a little bit while you were gone was the reality that Mikey DiPietro was probably not going to be a member of the Canucks going forward. Does it feel like a failure of the organization a little bit that this player was not ultimately able to develop under their banner?
I think they dropped the ball in the COVID season, certainly, just with the way that they handled him. Young goaltenders need to play. And he certainly fit in that category and didn't, and sat on the taxi squad. And, that was a tough situation. And it was a tough situation globally. There's nobody to blame for that part of it. But I do think that they would have been better served to get him to Utica and just allow him to play some games. So it's difficult, but it's also, I guess, proving to be difficult to move him if the agent was given the opportunity to seek a trade and Mike DiPietro still remains property of the Vancouver Canucks. That tells you that, teams aren't chomping to get their hands on this player. I think a lot of teams have that sort of goaltender in their system. So it would take, one team that was figuring it was getting a deal and that there's value there and maybe they wanted to take a flyer. But I can't imagine that, from the Canucks perspective, that they would get an awful lot in return. So, I don't want to throw him away. Like I like Mikey DiPietro. I've always enjoyed my dealings with him. Smart guy. A ton of fun to chat with and be around. And I think a popular teammate and all those types of things. And if he remains Canucks property when training camp rolls around here, it's on him to show up and sort of prove people wrong, I guess. And he's done that throughout his career to get to this point. But it does sort of feel like he plateaued. It looks like he's been passed on the depth chart last year with Spencer Martin going into Abbotsford and doing what he did. And now, the Canucks seem pretty high on Artur Silovs and want to give him an opportunity. And always a numbers game in goaltending at every level, and it kind of feels like he's the odd man out. So, yeah, I mean, I feel for him just that circumstances out of his control kind of led to that lost season under COVID.
Great to have you back, my friend. Look forward to more Canucks talk with J. Pat Daly here with Sekeres and Price. Appreciate it, Jeff.
Yeah, you bet.